Welcome to Moving People Forward with Mark Elfstrand. This program is a series of conversations on commonly seen challenges in everyday people's lives. We hope you'll be inspired by the stories you hear today. Perhaps you know of someone who would also benefit. Be sure to share the program link with a friend. Now, here's Mark.
I've long been a believer in synergy. You know, the equation that is often stated this way, 1 + 1 = 3. Well, many partnerships are formed in business using that premise, but often they don't work out. But when they do, a lot of good things can result. Well, today on Moving People Forward, you're going to hear from two individuals, gifted people, who are combining their talents to bring stories of faith from the business world. Bob Lambert and Jennifer Villarreal are the hosts of the radio program Faith Marketplace, focused on inspiring, equipping, and encouraging Christians in their work. And Bob Lambert, we're going to talk to you first. Good to have you with us, my friend.
It's great, Mark. I'm just thrilled.
I worked at a radio station in Chicago for several years, and Bob would come in once a week and work right next door to me, and he was doing his radio program at that point, and I'd see all these interesting people coming in, and we're going to talk more about that in a moment. But I first want you to go back a little bit in time, because you have had a rather interesting business career and a rather inventive business career. Tell us about that.
Well, I think it probably started at the age 10 when I won my first Cub Scout hot cross bun sale. I figured I was, okay, I'm destined to do this. But through the whole process and everything, and being raised in northwestern Ohio, a large family, and also was, kind of a traditional upbringing as far as a faith upbringing. But ended up, going to work for a very large multinational company, kind of a sweet company called Nestle.
Yeah, and, that is sweet.
Spent my first 10 years, first decade of my career there, and ended up migrating from marketing into sales. And because I had a retailing background also, it was kind of a natural transition. But then I landed here in Chicago, running a pretty sized sales organization at the tender age of 28.
Yeah.
And but then God smacked me down. I didn't know it at the time. I wasn't walking with the Lord. I was in the desert for about 36 years.
Yeah.
And so at that time, in 3 days' time, basically lost a 10-year career, turned 30, and was asked for a divorce on the third day. Kind of a bad week.
A rough week.
Kind of a rough week. Yeah. But that also hurled me into entrepreneurialism, and co-founded 3 companies after that. Ended up with one of the biggest challenges in my career. I went back into corporation, into corporate life. Mm-hmm. Spent about 6 years at that, and then ended up coming out of that with a couple more startups, and then ended up founding, which now is the company that I have, Samurai Business Group. Yeah,
we're going to talk about that in a moment, but weren't you involved in some projects where there was actually inventions and marketing that were kind of tied together?
Yeah, we, in the marketing agency that I co-founded, we had the privilege of launching a couple things. Number one, which a lot of people out there, which I euphemistically say, I'm the nerds guy, Nerds Candy. We launched Nerds Candy. Of course, with my candy background, that was kind of natural.
Right.
And double the size, actually, Willy Wonka brands within about 13 months we'll launch that one product, which is actually renderings off the line of the stuff that they were making. And then we had the privilege of being representing and launching Muhammad Ali's Worldwide Fan Club. And so, but we had a lot of, clients, marquee clients, Procter & Gamble, Quaker Oats, and ConAgra, and on the list goes of a lot of the kind of companies we were working with. But those would be two of the memorable things that we did, as far as the things that kind of stood out. And Muhammad was phenomenal. We had him in the office a number of times, and just a really gracious guy. Just a quick story, one of my PR person, which was one of the best PR people on the planet, was taking him to New York for the initial, deal. Yeah. And as the story goes, in the limo, he's saying, Betty, I got stopping power. And she says, yeah, I know, Muhammad. World champion 6 times, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. He said, no, I got stopping power. Well, they came to a stop in Midtown. He gets out of the limo, doesn't even get a block. He's got traffic stop every direction. She's panicked because everything's around the car.
Sure.
She's a little bitty thing, and so she had the driver open up the sunroof. She's on the back seat jumping up and down. Muhammad, get back in the car. And he's got this great grin. He looked over and he goes, I told you I had stopping power.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. I met him once in the airport in Pittsburgh with my son, and he just kind of playfully asked him to get a little closer to him, and then when he did right next to him, he goes, like a little fake puncher, but I mean, you could tell he was a very playful person by his nature.
Yeah.
Okay, but you said something pretty important there in the early part of this, that for a number of years, the spiritual part of your life was probably, well, non-existent. Would that be a fair appraisal?
Yeah.
What happened?
I just walked away from everything. I grew up in a very strong traditional family, and there was a lot of questions that I had that weren't getting answered, but I just, at 17, like every kid going off to school, getting away from home and all that stuff, it just busted loose, and that was another part of my life.
Okay, so when things began to change in your life and you realized at some point you needed some foundation, a deeper foundation, how did that happen?
Well, it was a journey. That didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
God had been working on me quite a bit and molding and shaping me. So in January of 2001, in a little church in the town I live in now, I'm in the back row of that church, and they're still singing Christmas music, and I'm crying like a baby, giving myself to the Lord. But it was an intricate process going through that, Mark. It's not, but it was obviously very profound for me, and it changed everything. It changed everything. Yeah. And I had a great opportunity to work with a mentor and a coach that was with Campus Crusade for Christ, was flipping his ministry from students to executives. And so what helped me with that was the fact that he became my coach and mentor through a program called Life Builders that I went through for over a year, actually about a year and a half. And then I became his executive coach as to how to coach and approach Christian business leaders. Yeah. Because he went into adult ministry at that point. And then coincidentally, along about that time, I was able to get involved with a phenomenal organization. Again, rocked my world from a business standpoint. It was called C12. Yeah. So I spent almost a decade in C12. And
okay.
That changed. And that really was the genesis. I didn't know God was setting me up for the show through that process, but that was actually the start of the show. Was all my brothers and sisters that I knew from there, because they got what faith and work and integrating what that really was. Yeah.
Okay, so just in 30 seconds if you can. Samurai Business Group, what do you do?
Well, we coach, teach, and train mainly B2B sales, higher end and longer sales cycles, in how people buy, not how you sell them. We really broke the mold 20 years ago with what we call the buying decision model. We were very privileged at DePaul University, then took that and liked it a lot. They integrated that into their sales leadership program. And then about 7 years ago, they came to us and said, the kids really like this whole thing. Why don't we do a case? And that case then got sold to 36 college universities now that are using that method in there. But that's basically it. So we do small mid-market companies that have been into Fortunes, and then individuals too. And we train them up. And a lot of our clients now are doubling or tripling top-line revenue within 12 to 18 months.
Okay, so Faith Marketplace, a radio program. It airs in Chicago on the radio, but you can get it anywhere in the world with today's technology. But how did you migrate to that?
Well, it's a good story, because it was formerly one of the people that worked at the station, and Jim Moran, and he and I know each other. We live in the same community. And I was having a crisis of calling, Mark. I just didn't know where God wanted me. I mean, foreign missions and kids program, all that was great, but I just didn't have and little did I know. So I shared that with him, because he had what I call the eighth wonder of the world, the birth of his first child. And so we went out to lunch, and I'm sharing that with him, and he looks at me and goes, Bob, we have a time slot from noon to 1 o'clock. Why don't you host a show talking about how you integrate your faith and work? And I'm just stunned. I'm looking at him and going, well, I know I have the face for radio. I didn't know I had the voice for it. And he started laughing, and I said, and then the Holy Spirit came over. I swear to goodness, I had no recollection of this thing that was coming out of my mouth. And that was, well, what do we have to do to make something like that happen? Yeah. And there, we were off to the
Next thing you know, you're there.
And in October of that year of 13, we launched the program, and it happened to be on my departed father's birthday, and I dedicated the show to Dad.
Well, I mentioned at the onset about synergy. 1 + 1 = 3. So you did this, you hosted this show by yourself for several years. We only have a few seconds here before we have to take our time out, but then you linked up with a partner for the program. And just quickly, just tell us that.
Well, that was a God thing too, because I've been praying on it. I was kind of running out of gas, saying, Lord, what do you want me to do with this show?
Tough thing every week,
Yeah, and so Jennifer and I had been keeping up with each other over the years. She'd been on the show a couple of times, and we knew we wanted to do something together. And we're ending up a phone call. She said, Bob, I think God's talking to me about something. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, you don't know this because you're not into Facebook, but the last time we recorded, the picture in the studio has been staring me in the face for the last couple of years. And I think he's prompted me to ask if you would be open to me coming on as a co-host.
Wow.
I'm sitting in my chair. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
And the synergy has worked, hasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's been
And
wonderful.
it does produce, as I've said many times, better results than an individual on each part can.
Yeah,
so.
because we complement each other. You know, it's fantastic. It really is.
Well, we're going to get a chance to meet her coming up here in just a moment. We do need to take a short break, and then we're going to continue our discussion, this time with Jennifer Villarreal, who, along with Bob Lambert, hosts this wonderful program called Faith Marketplace. If people want more information on the web, what do they do?
You go to faithmarketplace.com. And then they can reach us there, Bob Lambert at faithmarketplace.com.
Yeah.
And then Jennifer will give the phone number. I don't have it memorized.
All right, very good. Well, we'll continue with our program coming up in just a moment.
God is our safe place and our strength. He is always our help when we are in trouble. This word of God in Psalm 46:1 says it all. God is our safe place. He is our strength. He is our help when we are in trouble. Whenever and wherever we are invited, nationally or internationally, Lutheran Church Charity's mission is to bring the mercy, compassion, presence, and proclamation of Jesus Christ to those who are suffering and in need. LCC is a ministry of presence, to be present with Jesus, to lift up people in times of joy and sorrow, in prayer, and by passing through donations of dollar per dollar to those in need. Through our canine ministries, we respond and deploy with boots on the ground and paws within 24 hours, often sooner, of any crisis or disaster situation we're invited into. You see, for us, the bottom line is making a difference by being present for people who are suffering and in need with that mercy, compassion, presence of Jesus Christ. Thank you again for allowing us the privilege to stand alongside and serve others. Jesus and your partnership make that possible to touch thousands of lives.
This is Moving People Forward. I'm Mark Elfstrand, and we're grabbing some insights today from a couple of business veterans who teamed up together to produce a radio program called Faith Marketplace. Before our break, we had an opportunity to get acquainted with Bob Lambert, now his partner, Jennifer Villarreal. I said Real before, but I guess that's sometimes mispronounced by other people.
It happens all the
as well.
time.
But then, wait a second, we've got a whole nother piece to this now.
Right.
Since I last saw you, apparently now you have another name to add to this.
Yes,
What's going on with
I got
that?
married.
What? Oh, my
in
goodness.
October. It happened so fast. God was all over this.
Yeah.
And so we met in technically April, but really May.
Yeah.
And then we got married 5 months later. We knew within the first few weeks that this was it. And so now I'm Jennifer Reyes.
Yeah, well, congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, I saw something that you wrote yourself, so I'm not making this stuff up, where you said, I know what it's like to be lost, lonely, and tired from spinning in circles, not fully moving forward in life, business, and spiritually. Mm-hmm. Kind of walk us through that part of your life, and then tell me what changed.
Yeah. Those were some really dark days, a lot of anxiety, suicidal thoughts, but to the world, everybody thought I was the life of the party. They saw me out there putting on the smile, but at home I was severely depressed. And so I kept trying to fill up with things that just wouldn't. They would fall short. And I was masking a lot. I would enter into dysfunctional relationships. I was drinking. I was smoking the green stuff just about every day.
Which is not going to be legal, of course.
I
in the
know,
state of
but that's
Illinois.
another story
Yeah.
that people just don't realize
No.
how addicting and how
Right.
severe that can get. And so, and that's what happened to me. You know, I had what I call a near-death experience where it was very dark and demonic. I didn't even believe in a hell at that time. But what I witnessed and what I experienced was awful. Every pain, every fear surfaced in that moment. And I felt like I was battling for my soul.
Yeah. So I said, it's kind of a follow-up. So what changed?
Yeah. So I think that triggered a little bit, but that wasn't enough for me. I guess I just was. It took me a few days to process after that, like what's really happening.
Yeah.
And I opened up and asked somebody who was really well versed in Scripture, and I just said, we basically had a very long conversation. Every doubt, every question that I had about God, Jesus, religion, she was able to help me see that. And I was ready in that moment. For many, many years, I was seeking in other books and longed for a relationship with God, but I just never knew that because I didn't know Jesus Christ. And so it was in that moment that I sincerely sought that truth, and my heart just, the veil lifted and my heart softened and opened up, and I accepted Christ in September of 2011.
Well, you've gone on to, I don't know whether you were the founder, but the Unshakable Confidence Club.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah, so I first founded Sales from the Heart, and I'm still very active in one-on-one coaching and group coaching. But, I kept hearing this thing with my clients about confidence, whether they had a ton of money in the bank or not, whether they had been in business for a long time or not, they lacked this confidence, and they kept putting it on their own shoulders, all this pressure, all the responsibility, and it kept weighing on them. And so obviously that unshakable confidence doesn't come from us. It comes from leaning on the Lord. And so whether they are believers or not, I work with people of all different faith backgrounds, but they begin to see and open up more to a deeper relationship. Not all. Some, we're just planting the seed. Some still reject it, and that's okay. I always tell them I'm not here to convince, convert, or condemn, but I'm not going to shy away from my testimony. And so when I launched Sales from the Heart and Unshakable Confidence Club, I was bold about sharing my testimony, and I think that's what drew more people in to connect with me, whether they were Christians or not.
Is that what your full-time work is?
Yes.
Right now?
That's what I've been doing since 2007, but I launched my business in 2013.
All right. Now, you've also said as part of your vision, God's calling is to bring salt and light to those in the marketplace all over the world.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's happening?
Yeah, I really do, but people do it in their own unique way. Some people are more bold about it. Some people are starting to be more present with it, but it's not just about the talk, it's really about the walk, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what we like to do on Faith Marketplace Radio as well, is share those stories about how other people are doing that. When I work with my clients in groups or one-on-one, I encourage them and I give them ideas on how, they can bring God more into their business, or how is, God wanting to do that, and to pray and to listen and see where the Lord is leading them. I would have never imagined I would be doing that with Sales from the Heart. That's not what I intended to do, but he course corrected my steps, right? And so that clarity came through as I began to take action.
What do you detect is the difference when you talk to clients who don't have a spiritual perspective about the way that they try to process life and making big decisions and so forth?
Usually at some point we tend to plateau together, and we do part ways as friends, and that's totally okay. But some of the others, they start to begin to see and watch how God transforms themselves and the people around them and their business.
When you do the radio program, you're really talking, though, to people who have a faith perspective as it relates to their work in the workplace.
Exactly.
Now, some people might say, well, God and mammon, you got money over here, you got God over here. How does that intersection work?
Yeah, that actually happens a lot, even with some of our guests, and we begin to plant that seed, right, and break some of those money barriers or those money, the money mindset. I think we all can still have it at some point, even if we have broken past that a little bit. It can try to creep back in, and that's really not from God. That's spiritual attack.
What are some of the ethical issues that you think business leaders are struggling with today?
Yeah, the ethical issues.
Yeah.
You know what? I think the people that I talk to, I just tell them to be authentic with who they are, and if they don't really know who they are, they don't know their true identity, I think that's when all the other stuff starts to creep in. And so we start with that at the foundation. That's really important, to operate with that authenticity and integrity and that love.
So you and Bob Lambert work together.
Yes.
And what do you bring to the party that is different than what Bob brings to the party?
Well, believe it or not, I am not a millennial, as though a lot of people think maybe I qualify in that category.
So keep looking like that. Is that what
thank
you
you.
just said?
Yes, I'm in my 40s. But I think he equates a little bit like that I'm a younger generation.
Okay.
Although he probably has more energy and pep than I do most days. But I think that the different aspect is the online, presence and things like that. So we're in the process of growing that and redoing that.
Yeah.
And there's really great value in also what Bob has taught me with some of the old school ways, with meeting with people, the one-on-one. I still like that. I just leverage my time slightly different.
Yeah.
And so that synergy comes together really well. And so that's what I do with my clients all day long, is helping them, grow that online presence or in person, but really establishing that connection. And I would say that's what Bob and I do really well. Is it's about relationships, it's about connection, and really caring whether they become a client or not. It's how can we serve them.
Do you feel that you add a woman's perspective, and that gives you just another way to look at some of the life and business problems and so forth?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, there are roles,
Yeah.
That women and men play, although society may say, to be more masculine for the female, right? Or to be more independent.
Yeah.
And so I don't necessarily subscribe to that. But I think the element that I bring is just really hearing what maybe somebody isn't saying.
Yeah.
And being able to pull that out in the interview.
Yeah, very good. Well, if people want to hear the interviews that you and Bob are doing on Faith Marketplace, we mentioned again the radio program is heard in Chicago, but you can hear it anywhere. And how can people connect with the program?
Yeah, they can find that at faithmarketplace.com, and then they can connect with me at salesfromtheheart.com.
Okay, very, very good. And then you can get to hear Bob Lambert and Jennifer Reyes. Now that she's married.
Reyes.
Oh,
Jennifer
Reyes.
Reyes.
Excuse me, yeah. Hey, that's fun. I can now mess up that name
Yes.
just like your previous name.
It's already been happening.
Well, congratulations
Thank you
again
so
to you
much.
on that. And thanks for giving us some insights from the exciting work you're getting to do.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Well, that's going to do it for our program today. As the sages have told us, grow in wisdom, think humbly of yourself, and love one another. And may it be so with you. Join us next time for more of Moving People Forward. I'm Mark Elfstrand.